Chronicles. Thanks for joining us on the RevTV YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on the social channels as well. At RevTV, at Todd Lewis Sports on both the X and the Instagram. As usual, we've gathered once again. We'll just talk about a few topics and subjects in racing, not really results oriented, might touch on some results, but usually some discussion and comment on other stories, bigger stories, about the business, about racing, about motorsports, and who knows what else we'll end up delving into. This is still a relatively new thing, but we're liking it. Everybody's pretty pleased with it so far. We're going to keep it going for a while. We may grow it into something else. Who knows? It's still work in progress. If you've got thoughts, ideas, comments, yeah, shoot us a DM on X and on Instagram. Happy to reply back. We've had some good feedback already. We appreciate that and look forward to more thoughts, ideas, and comments. So let's begin with NASCAR and NASCAR Canada. Had a whirlwind trip to the East Coast to Riverside International Speedway. Haven't been there for 5 years. 2019 was the last time that NASCAR Canada raced there. Super fun track. If you caught some of the live stream, if you are anxiously awaiting the race replays on TSN, the coming up, it's really good racing. We commented on it a number of times through the races that there's some really good racing going on throughout the field, and it was fun to see. Had to move and adapt a little bit on the fly because their weather was pretty stinky for Sunday. It was supposed to be a 150 Saturday and a 150 Sunday. Moved it up. Both races ran on Saturday, and it was some really, really good racing action. Fun to watch, fun to enjoy, and sure, I'll give winners away. Kevin Lacroix is the winner of both the 150s. It was some really fun racing action. Good showings by other drivers as well, and really worthwhile. Had a better car count at Riverside than we did at Newfoundland. We touched on that a bit last week, that the challenges for Newfoundland are extreme in terms of cost and time on the road. You got to take a ferry to the island and back to get your cars over there, and it's a bit of a challenge. So I don't know if it's going to continue beyond this year or not. I hope it does, because it's a fun event. We'll need to make some adjustments, and same thing for Riverside. I hope that continues as well, because as we saw on track, it's a fun, racy racetrack as well. So good on everyone there. Other NASCAR stuff that I want to get into as well, because once again, the NASCAR Cup Series, well, kind of captivated me a little bit with choices and decisions that were made. I find it puzzling. Some others might disagree, thought everything was great, thought everything was okay. Joey Logano was the winner in Nashville. I don't know that Joey Logano deserved to win the race. Let me explain why if you didn't watch it. Scheduled for about 300 laps. Okay, that's fine. They ran 31 more laps than the advertised distance. And here's where the difficulty comes in for me. Sure looked like Denny Hamlin was going to win. Sure looked like he had the best car. Their strategy had played out, except, we get a caution with 2 laps remaining, which of course brings in the whole NASCAR overtime thing. I get the principle that you want races to end under green wherever possible. I can accept that. It's the indefinite number of overtime chances and opportunities that I find frustrating and exasperating, and take a ridiculous amount of time in this case to get through. 5 extra attempts to finish the race under green. That's wrong. That's too many. That changes the race. I don't know of other series that go beyond the advertised distance the way NASCAR does in this case. I'll give you that 5 is extreme. It should never get to that point that it changes what would have been the natural outcome of the race, because fuel mileage, nobody plans or can adapt their strategy to go that long. Oh, but Joey Logano ran that long. He ran over 100 laps. That's great. He was running back in the pack and not using fuel. He had no hope of winning that race unless it went well beyond the advertised distance the way it did. I can't accept this. I don't think this is the right choice. This is the right decision. If you feel you must have this green white checker to try to get a green flag finish, 1 attempt, maybe 2. I don't think it can go beyond that. I think it really screws with the results, as it did in this case. No, Joe Logano gets the win. Okay, that's great, and he gets his ticket into the playoffs. But I don't think that this is the way to go. The other part of this, in addition to running this extra 30 plus laps, more than 10% past the advertised distance, they had a rain delay. This race took more than 6 hours to run once again. That's too long. You can't be you can't be holding people hostage like this and running this long. I think it's a mistake. I don't agree with this at all. So I'll be interested to see what happens going forward. Apparently, there's not been a lot of blowback so far about this. I think it's awful, and it became incredibly frustrating to try to watch the end of this race. It's just, oh, here we go again. I know it wasn't because of reckless driving that we had crashes. It was predominantly because drivers are running out of fuel. But it shouldn't get to this point. That's the part that I find frustrating. If you want to have an extra go at it, okay, we'll give you a couple laps. But this multiple attempts is way wrong. Also, one other note from the weekend, Carson Hocevar got slapped with a big fine and penalized points for spinning out a car under caution, as he should be. That's a stupid move. You don't spin someone out under caution. It's dangerous. At the best of times, that's just a dumb move. So hopefully that helps with his behavior a little bit. Should we talk a little bit about Formula One too? Yes, Max Verstappen was in the lead, wasn't a runaway, and really had a big challenge from Lando Norris, and it looked like he might pass him to get out in front in the late stages of the Formula One race in Austria and take a victory. Except the two touched, they cut tires, they both ended up losing, and George Russell was the winner. Now, there's been some discussion and debate about how this is policed, how it's approached. I really like the idea that they used a gravel strip just outside the track to help police track limits. If you get all tires over the track limits, you're in the gravel, and that causes you problems. I think that's a very good idea and something that we should look at further. In terms of Lando trying to pass Max on multiple occasions, yes, it did look like he moved in a reactionary way. On the final one where they touched, it looked like Max just kind of did a little fade to the outside. It wasn't a blatant move. He didn't drive him off the course deliberately, but just sort of faded over. So there was no place to go, and it was inevitable that Lando Norris touched and went off track, and they both end up losing their fine finishing position. So in a sense, I guess it kind of policed itself, but no, I feel bad for Lando. It could have and should have been a victory there. So we'll see what happens with this going forward. Now, of course, everyone's trying to make this a feud between friends. We'll see if that really plays out or not. Inevitably, there will be more conversation about it as we head to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone coming up. In IndyCar news, hey, McLaren, do you have commitment issues? I mean, another week, another driver announcement. This one for 2025. It's not a change that's going to take place this year, but Alexander Rossi is going to be out of his ride at McLaren after only 2 years, and Christian Lundgaard is going to take over the number 7 for McLaren going forward. So I don't know. It's as we've talked. I said it's a real cutthroat business at times, and this is what's happening. Alexander Rossi and McLaren, trying to say the right things. Rossi saying is like, we tried to have discussions, couldn't come to an agreement, so we've mutually decided to part. He'll be on the grid next year. I expect him to have a ride somewhere else. There will be opportunities. Not sure where yet. Haven't had a chance to really dig too deeply into it, but I expect Alex Rossi will be back next year in another car, another colors, another team. He's driven both Hondas and Chevys now, so we'll wait and see. The only thing that IndyCar, it seems, wants to talk about is hybrids. And because of all the stuff that's gone on this year with driver shuffling and changing and controversies, it's the only thing that nobody else wants to talk about except IndyCar. But they will finally debut their hybrid motors at Mid-Ohio this weekend. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I don't think it's going to be a big reliability issue. I think that the intent was to debut them at the start of the season. They weren't ready. I think they should have waited till next year. But quite frankly, this is something they've got to get out as quickly as possible, because this is going to help them keep their engine manufacturers and hopefully attract another one. I know they keep saying this, but hopefully it attracts another one. but they've been saying that for 10 years or so now. What I think it might do is help Honda stay in the IndyCar business, which would be a good thing. So I guess I'm curious to see. Hybrids are the way the manufacturers want it. It's become a bigger part of motorsports and other series. So we'll see what happens with IndyCar, and we'll see what happens with the championship battle. We're not that many weeks out from Toronto and the Ontario Honda Dealers Indy Toronto coming up on the streets of Toronto this year. Looking forward to that event as always. It is a favorite of mine. Kind of grew up with it and really love being part of that event. Before that, of course, we'll have the IMSA series at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Looking forward to that. Should be a great crowd once again. Should be some sensational racing, and a lot of good stories to follow as well, which we'll be doing. I'm working on setting up some interviews for Rev Culture, which we'll see in the coming weeks ahead as well. Before that is the NASCAR Canada Series back in action. Dirt track racing this time. They'll be at Sweeken Speedway. So lots of good racing, lots of good action to come. And we'll keep talking about it every Wednesday on another edition of Speed Chronicles. At Todd Lewis Sports, at RevTV on X and Instagram. If you've got comments, thoughts, ideas, and suggestions that you want to share or questions that you have, feel free to send them along. We'll get to them. So we're really liking this conversation, liking where it's going, and having a good time with it so far. So it'll continue. Thanks for tuning in this week. Back with you again next Wednesday.